So I actually have the distinction, unless Josh too, I have a teen that went through the Parker Teen Academy this summer too. So, and the story she told, I want to go through the Teen Academy. They had her spinning out in cars. They had them doing all this stuff. It was great. So I just want to read real quick about the Parker before we bring you guys up. So the Parker Police Department wants to celebrate you and all of your attention. I think this was a 13-week class that you all gave up your evenings to go. Was it virtual and in person, or was it all in person? Or is it all virtual? Oh, fantastic. So Bree can control it. She can shut off your microphones and all that. That's awesome. So the Parker Police Department's free 13-week Citizens Academy gives participants the first-hand information about how the police department operates. Classes focus on criminal law, mounted patrol, evidence, dispatch, accident reconstruction, DUI laws, canine, and many other topics. In addition to the interactive classes, participants are able to attend an optional trip to the Law Enforcement Firing Academy, which I understand you're all very safe in coming back, especially with Officer Cummings out there. He's one of my favorites, but I'm not sure I would get around guns with him. And it sounds like you got to meet a whole bunch of the Parker police officers as well. So would you all please join me in congratulating the Fall 2021 Parker Police Department. Your gift bags from Bree and your certificates, right? But we'd like to get a picture with you because, you know, one of the things, and I know that they tell you, the chief will tell you, Commander Peters will tell you, the big benefit of having this police academy is that every time we do it, we've now enlisted ambassadors for the police department. Not that our team over the police department needs any other good publicity, but you know, when you hear something, when you hear, oh, they stopped me for speeding and they write a bunch of tickets, well, you know from your experience that's not true. When they talk about, you know, oh, they do this or they do this, we enlist you as our ambassadors to go out there and tell the truth about the Parker Police Department, and they are a phenomenal police department. You know, we have now, in the last 6 months, I think we brought on 7 new officers. And they all, is that about right? 7? That's about right. 7 or 8? And they all look so young. They all look like 16. But one of the things that I always get the opportunity to tell the families is that, don't worry, this council and this town has the police officers' backs. Number one, if you're a police officer in Parker, you'll never go hungry over there. Ever, ever, ever. But second, you know, if you're a police officer in Parker, these 6 men and women that sit here behind me, we will fight whatever the state legislature tries to do. We will fight any of these other radical laws that don't allow them to arrest people, that don't allow them to, you know, incarcerate, that hold them personally responsible, you know, for their actions to big sums. You know, we've got their backs. And so that's what I tell the parents and the wives and the husbands who are out there. So again, you know, we're enlisting you as that ambassador to help keep our officers safe, help them keep up their morale, and really to help keep telling the Parker PD story. So graduates, come on down. Let's get a picture of you guys. Come on down. We'll like Russell's right. You guys can find out what we'll get.
I might have to just because
yeah, those smart people.
Oh, great. I'm going to stand by the tall guys. You know, it's only like when the third graders come that I really feel comfortable here. But even then, like, can y'all get in? All right. Okay, so let's.
Just look all around. All right. One with me. Hold on with it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
And you are all welcome to stay. We're going to be talking about the building code updates and stuff, so you know, don't run away. exciting stuff.
There might be a quiz.
Josh, when did you do?
2013, like right after I got elected.
Did
2019.
19, and I did 18. No, I did 19. But I did spring. Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go.
What is it?
Yes.
All right, we will go ahead as they're exiting and move on to public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for town residents and other interested individuals to speak on items that are not on the agenda. If you are wishing to make public comment and are in the room, there's a form to fill out, and we will call you up here. Chris, I don't see anybody listed. Also, if you're on Zoom, you can raise your hand. And lastly, the third way to make public comment is by emailing the town clerk's office by 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting, and those will be read into the record for the minutes of November 15th. So, Weldy, do you see anybody online?
No, Mayor, there's no
Anybody
hands.
in the room wishing to make public comment on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll close that, and we will move to item number 4, reports, items, and comments from the mayor and council. I will start to my right, Councilman Rivero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Went on a tour of some established communities downtown course with Councilmember Barrington, Director Martinez. Learned a lot. Got to go up and see friends and coworkers, if you will, up in Golden, Wheat Ridge, Arvada, and Belmar over in Lakewood. Great tour, and truly appreciate CML and most importantly DCI's work in organizing that.
Excellent. Councilmember Pogue.
Yeah, nothing new for this week. Everything I had got canceled.
All right. Councilmember Hendricks.
I've been sick lately, but I would like to say thanks to the council for passing the Chambers Road expansion. I thought that was great. Great work for everyone involved. Parker Task Force is having a huge Thanksgiving food drive, so this Saturday, 9 to 4, so please support them. And that's it.
Great. Councilmember Dyak.
Thank you very much. Last week I was on a cruise with my wife, but the week before that it was Transportation Week. I attended the Douglas County Transportation Forum. What that is it's a bunch of local elected officials from Douglas County as well as a county commissioner. We get together with staff and talk about our transportation challenges and potential funding coming. We talked about the impending DRCOG tip process. What that is, big picture, is it's a return of your federal gas tax dollars here locally to the sub-region or Douglas County. So we talked about that. For the new people, we had a number of challenges or issues there. So that was a good, robust discussion. I had a DRCOG work session where we discussed part of that funding coming back to the Denver region. We also talked about the greenhouse gas rule making revisions, something very pressing at a regional and state level. We also had a performance and engagement committee meeting, which we did the executive director's review. And then the next day, E470. At the board meeting, I guess the big thing is the board unanimously adopted a toll rate policy for the next 3 years, indicating a toll rate reduction. The toll rate reduction is going to be 10 cents per year at Toll Plaza A, which is the only toll plaza in Douglas County, and 5 cents a year at every other toll plaza. So this policy, although 3 years, will be revisited every year. So if there's improving traffic, you could potentially see something greater, but again, cannot promise that. So with that is all. Thank you.
Councilmember Barrington.
I also attended the bus tour with Councilmember Rivero, and I attended the Downtown Business Alliance membership meeting this past Wednesday, where we had a special guest from downtown Colorado, Inc. And just talking about how to keep our downtown vibrant and some different mechanisms for funding. And then on Friday, I attended the Parker Chamber of Commerce economic update, but I'm going to let Mayor Toborg talk about that.
Great. And Councilmember Hefta.
I have had some great conversations with some volunteers at the Parker Senior Center about their programs going forward this past week. And I also had a tour of the Parker Adventist Hospital, and I'd like to comment that I think they're doing an outstanding job, both nurses and doctors and staff, of helping our COVID patients here in Parker, Colorado.
Excellent, and we are so glad you're back with us. So glad. As Councilmember Barrington said, Councilmember Barrington, Hendricks, and Rivera, we attended the Chamber of Commerce's Economic Update breakfast on Friday. We had about 70 to 80 businesses that were present with us, along with some statistical folks, analytics folks that talked about, why we're underemployed here, why we have the deficit in the available workforce that we have here, and it was fascinating. They're going to send those slides, so hopefully we can get those presented. Kudos to our Deputy Town Administrator Bo Martinez, who was really the star of the show, I think, in talking about how Parker's growing and our economic outlook. But I thought that was fantastic. And lastly, just want to remind everybody that the mayor's holiday lighting will be Friday after Thanksgiving, November 26th. This will be the first big presentation we've had, a full-blown presentation we've had since the shutdown. So very excited. At this point, happy to announce that all of the local mayors that are here, Cassiano, Wade, and Lopez will be joining as well. So, and especially because Mayor Wade did not get his last one, I'm going to share my first one with him. So we'll do that, and then we'll boot him off the stage pretty quick. So, but anyways, and all the council members I'm hoping will be there as well. So. With that, we will move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and will be enacted with one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of the consent agenda unless council votes to remove items for individual discussion. Ordinances on the consent agenda are for introduction only and will not be removed. So, council, you have items 5A through 5F for your view.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda items 5A through 5F, please.
I'll second.
That motion was made by Councilman Rivero, seconded by Councilmember Hendricks. Again, this will be a voice vote. Rivero?
Aye.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And the consent calendar passes 6-0. Just as a point of personal reference, there are two proclamations that we will post on the town's website that the council just approved. One was for Small Business Saturday here in Parker, which we're very excited. And as we, all 7 of us say, be sure to shop local, be sure to support your local businesses. And then there's a proclamation for National American Indian Heritage Month, which I believe is in December. With that said, we will move into public hearings. Council, we have 4 public hearings that we'll be going through tonight. So we'll start that off with the first one, ordinance number 1.553 on second reading, a bill for an ordinance to adopt the 2022 budget and to make appropriations for the same. I'm going to go ahead and open that public hearing at 7:25. The way this will go is we will hear from staff. We will have questions of staff. We will open it for public comment. We'll close the public commenting period. We'll bring it back to the council for any thoughts, opinions, debates, and then we'll have a vote on it. So, Madam Finance Director, I thought we just saw you as a treasurer, but now Finance Director.
We all have different hats
Yes,
on right
ma'am.
now. All right. Well, thank you very much, Mayor and Council. We are here tonight with the second public hearing for the 2022 budget for the town. Next slide. So this chart shows us where we are. We have been reviewing the budget for quite some time at this point, and I'm going to give a bit of an abbreviated presentation tonight, which I'm sure there'll be this big sigh of relief. But for any public listening, I want to make sure everyone understands the full presentation is available out on the town's website, and also you can watch previous meetings with council to hear the full presentation. Tonight we are at November 15th with that second reading, as I mentioned, and then the next and last remaining big step after tonight will be the filing of the 2022 budget with the Department of Local Affairs, which that is due legally by the end of January. And from there, we'll go on to the next slide. I'm going to go through these next slides very quickly. You've seen them several times, but just so that any listeners know that we do put a lot of time and effort into our budget. We have identified guidelines and concerns and assumptions that we have put in place as we pulled this budget together. This slide actually looks at 4 of the major guidelines. The next slide looks at our budget concerns with this budget. I would say that one of the largest concerns is just around how recovery will continue. We have several of our funds where we are assuming that life has gone back to normal. So we'll see if that happens, and we will continue to watch that very carefully. One of the other large items is just how we go about balancing the need to fund a capital reserve program, which we have not had in place before, and balancing that then with the continued needs from an operating perspective of operational growth, whether that's operating expense, additional FTEs, full-time employees, or capital expense within our other funds. The budget assumptions are on this slide, and here I am going to go through a couple of these just so that we know what we're looking at as we look at the numbers. Again, we are funding community activities at levels similar to 2019. So the mayor mentioned the holiday lighting, and that is back to our normal levels. We have implemented a compensation structure change within the police department that addressed range spread, step consistency, and compression issues. Our employee body, who falls under the performance pay, and our PD officer step plan are both increasing by 4%. We have contained growth in our discretionary expense. This is to make sure that we continue to stay on track with our 10-year plan that was reviewed by council earlier this year. We have planned for future funding requirements related to town infrastructure and buildings. This is that capital reserve fund that we've been talking about, and we'll see those large dollar amounts later in the presentation. And then the last item is the fact that we have continued to use our priority scoring process for capital, and this year we also implemented it from an expense perspective. So those are our basic assumptions that went into the budget, and with that we will go to the next slide. Here we're going to take a look at our general fund. The general fund is the fund where the majority of our town departments and operations reside. So this is the home of the police department, Public Works, all of our support organizations. Here with the top 5 revenue items, you can see the top 5 items, and you can see as we look down the very bottom line that our reliance on sales tax has continued to increase. In 2019, it was 66%, and we are all now with the 2022 budget up to almost 71%. We've had a slight shift in the 5 revenue items that fall in that top 5, with the highway user taxes falling out and the electric excise tax coming in. And then the last item of note on this page is just that total revenue growth for the 2021 projection and the 2022 budget. We've had tremendous growth within our sales tax in 2021, and we see that reflected with the 12% growth for that item. However, because last year we had several $1 million of one-time revenue come in, we are not seeing that large increase on the bottom line. So I wanted to explain that. And then our 2022 budget is looking at an overall 5.3% revenue growth. Here's a look at our revenue with our major categories. So you can see the major items that we look at for revenue. And again, it comes down to a total growth of 2022 budget over the projection for 2021 of 5.3%. Our total expenses are ticking up, and that's because we did implement the return to normal with our expenses. We I'm going to start with the salary and benefits. So with salary and benefits, the largest item driving the increase there is the fact that as we budget for 2022, we are assuming that every single position within the town is full for 12 months. And so we get that large tick up with our budget because in reality that does not happen. So in 2021 the numbers have been down because we've had a fair number of vacancies throughout the town. And so we get that large swing. The 4% performance pay and PD officer step plan equates to $1.1 million. So that's the other major increase within our salary and benefits. Our supplies expense is being driven primarily by our police department. They are looking at an increase in small tool and equipment purchases of a little over $90,000, and then also $20,000 in their furniture. Within the purchase supplies, we have growth of $1.5 million. 1.2 of that is coming from Public Works. So they are increasing their expenses to reflect the fact that we have increased lane miles, and then we also have some fairly hefty increases in our material costs that are reflected in this budget. The other items within purchase services that are increasing are travel and training, vendors and contractors, and special events. So that gives you a sense of the other items that are increasing within our purchased services. And within the general fund, capital is not a large expense item. We do have $2.3 million of capital. It's a total of 18 projects, everything from a boiler replacement to Axon software for the evidence viewing room at PD. So if we go to the next slide, this is a summary of our general fund for both the 2021 projection and also the 2022 budget. We've talked about the revenue and expense. Our transfers out are several from the general fund to our other funds. We will talk about the cultural fund a little bit more later. The debt service fund stays fairly constant to reflect our static debt payments year over year. The big item, again, is our capital facilities reserve fund that we've been talking about. So in 2021, we will be transferring $29 million into that fund, and in 2022, a little over $9 million. The facility services fund transfer out from the general fund to the facility services fund of $100,000 is to help that fund actually have a healthier cash balance. Our ending cash is in excess of the 25% that we need to maintain, and so we are in good shape with our general fund. With that, we will move into our special revenue funds. The first one is our Parks and Recreation Fund. This is the fund where the majority of the capital expenditures are expensed out of. The revenue that comes in is coming from various sources, and some of those items move around a lot. So you'll see some variance with our revenue numbers. Expenditures are primarily our capital. So if we go to the next slide, you can see the $4 million of capital expense that we'll be incurring in this fund with the 2022 budget. The largest item listed here is the O'Brien Park Playground update. There are, first of all, the listing and the other listings for capital that you'll see tonight are all in priority order. So I mentioned the scoring that has taken place. We have used that as the ordering on the slides. And then for some of the projects, you may raise an eyebrow and say, how can we do that with so few dollars? And that's because in some years, if a program is just kicking off, it may be just design costs. If it's a year where a project is wrapping up, it may just be some of our remaining punch list type items. But the big items for 2022 are the O'Brien Park Playground update and then also the Lemon Gulch Trail. With that, we'll move to the Recreation Fund. The fund is actually reflecting recovery, so back to normal. You can see that as you look at the revenue numbers. They're increasing from 2020 through 2022. The revenue increase in 2022 is also reflective of some detailed cost recovery analysis that the Parks and Rec Department went through so that their charges for services are more accurately reflecting the costs that are involved. The expenses in this fund are increasing also to reflect that with more activity going on, we have more expense. About 57% of the expense within this fund is related to personnel, so our salary and benefits costs. We have worked with this fund because if you look at the 2021 projection, we are looking at a cash balance of just over $600,000. We are trying to improve that position because that's not a very healthy position for a fund this size. So our 2022 budget does get our cash back up to a little over $1.8 million. The next fund is our cultural fund. Here again, we have budgeted for recovery. You can see that with our revenue. The $2.2 million increase is split between almost 50-50 between operational increases and then also the increase in the transfer from the general fund to the cultural fund. From an expense perspective, most of the expense increases are related to just operational costs. And again, here we've got that increase in our cash balance. With that, here is our capital reserve fund. So this fund basically started with about $2 million. We really haven't put much money into the fund over the years that it has existed. So we are recommending with this, actually with this budget, we're addressing 2022. Jen's going to talk to you about 2021 and the adjustment that needs to be made to our 2021 budget. But here it is included in the projection column. We are showing that we would have a little over $29 million coming into this fund, and then the $9 million in 2022. If you'll recall from the study session last week, we saw some really large numbers. So anticipate that those numbers will probably increase some, both as we get to planning, designing in more detail, and also just cost increases. So this is a good step. By the end of 2022, we should have a little over $40 million in cash sitting in this fund to enable the town to respond to infrastructure and building needs. With that, we'll look at our capital projects funds. The first one is our public improvements fund. The revenue here, if you're looking at 2020, it is much larger than in the other 2 years. That's because we accounted for the debt from PAR as it was transferred over to the town. It came in as revenue within this fund. Other than that, most of the revenue stays fairly static in this fund except for our contributions from developers. And within these 3 years, those contributions range anywhere from $1 million to over $4 million. The next slide looks at some of the projects that will be implemented with this budget. Many of these projects are, as I indicated earlier, design costs only. We are in the first year of many of these projects. So this is the first page. Again, they are in priority order. And when we go to the next slide, this is the remainder of the project. So we have a lot of activity that is budgeted to occur in 2022. The next fund we're going to take a look at is our Excise Tax Fund. Revenue comes in from excise taxes, and the expenditures are related to transfers out to Parks and Rec and to our Public Improvements Fund that we just talked about. So that's the revenue and expense here. We have a healthy balance going on, and we will be continuing to use that for the appropriate costs associated with the excise tax revenue that comes in. The next fund we're going to look at is our Stormwater Utility Fund. It is our only fund that is falls into our enterprise fund category. This means that this part of town operations operates as a business. So it's the only area of the town that operates and stands on its own. We do not provide any additional funding. The fees, the charges for services, and then developer contributions have to fund all of the activity here. And so that is what is going on with the 2022 budget. We have a decline in the revenue from 2021 to 2022 due to the level of developer contributions. And then the expenditures in this fund are primarily related to capital. And with that, we'll go to the next page, and you can see the $10 million worth of projects that are anticipated in 2022 for the Stormwater Utility Fund. We'll move on to our Internal Services Fund. The first one, let me step back. So first of all, Internal Service Funds, that is an indication that it's an internal department. The revenue that comes into, we're going to talk about 3 funds. The revenue that comes in, it comes from other departments who make use of the services that each of these funds provide. So Fleet Services is our first fund here. The revenue comes in from those departments that have fleet, so primarily our Public Works and our PD. Those would be the primary departments that have expenses associated with this. So they are actually funding the costs associated with the fleet services. The expenditures are then related to capital. They in this 3-year time period, that capital averages about $1.6 million a year, and that capital is for the replacement of existing fleet and also the purchase of new incremental fleet. The next fund is our Facility Services Fund. Again, the revenue is coming in from those departments that use this, which is almost all of us. So the revenue is running about $1.2 million consistently between 21 and 22. The expenditures are primarily personnel related and then also purchase services. This is where our contract with key people resides, our custodial services. We are here with this fund in need of building up cash, so you can see that from 2020 to 2022, we are trying to get that cash balance up just slightly. The last fund in this area is our Technology Management Fund. We have about $4 million coming in, and the expenditures here split between personnel, software purchases, and hardware purchases. And with that, we're to the end. I will take any questions.
You get quicker every time on this.
On purpose.
So, Council, we will start with questions from Mary Lou before we open it up to the public for any comment. Councilmember Hefta.
The Capital Reserve Fund is going up to approximately $30 million.
It's going up to 40 million?
40 million. Mm-hmm. And before it was about 10 million or 1 million?
It was just a couple million.
Okay.
So this is where the, I'm going to call it somewhere between 60 and $100 million of expenses associated with the building program that was laid out to council last week will come out of. So as we look at the design and addition to Town Hall, to PD, to PACE, and then also growth within Parks and Rec that impacts having to do some shifting around between Matzenbacher and Pewauk. So I think I hit all of those off the top of my head. But that's, this is to provide the funding for that. We had the discussion last week and 2 weeks ago that most of this building activity should be able to be accomplished through the use of cash. We have that cash. This cash is primarily sourced through what has occurred through the last 2 years. And so it is money that, because it sits in our cash balance, it can only be used for one-time items. We cannot use this cash for, or shouldn't use this cash for operating items because there's no way to sustain it on a going forward basis.
So just to clarify, the money is in the account, or it will be in the account, in anticipation of whether town council approves these upgrades going forward. So all these upgrades have to be approved by town council and voted on. But as the finance director, you would like to have the money sitting there in 2022 for whatever town council proposes to vote on, approve or not.
So as finance director, I think one of my main roles is to make sure that we have funding available, whether it's cash or it's borrowing, or any other sources that we can tap into. So I would say there are a variety of sources out there. It's my job to make sure, or attempt to make sure that we have funding available for what council is willing to direct town as policy with these buildings.
Okay, thank you, Mary Lou.
Yep.
Councilmember Barrington?
So just, I guess to clarify also, it sounds like it's very expensive to run a town.
Yes.
And expensive to keep it safe. So it sounds like if there's a 4% increase for our, is it for all?
It's the majority of our employees. So all of the majority of our employees fall under our performance pay program. And then also we have the STEP program in place for our commissioned officers. We treat all of that as kind of one great big program, and so all of it is budgeted to increase that 4%.
Thank you.
Councilman Dyak?
Thank you. Just to further Councilmember Hefta's discussion, as we approach full build-out here in the next 10, 15 years, it's important to kind of have a less reliance on debt to take care of our capital needs. It's good that we do have savings, live within our means, so to speak, and take advantage of opportunities that are brought before us to save money. So with that, I appreciate us building up the capital funds so we can have money without using debt instruments to take care of what we have to do. Thank you.
Councilman Hendricks?
No questions.
Councilmember Pogue?
Yes. Could you explain where the $30 million came from for the transfer to capital reserves?
Sure. So if we go back, Weldy, to the summary page for the general fund. Go down. Nope. There, whoa, go back. Nope, keep going. There we go. All right, so that money is coming from the general fund. It's being sourced out of the general fund. As you can see here, it is one of the transfers out from the general fund to the capital reserve fund. So the primary source of revenue within the general fund is our sales tax revenue. And also, I would say contributing to this buildup of cash was also the reduced expenses that we were incurring over the past 18 months. As we kind of walk through the expense items, our supplies and our purchase services are all increasing to reflect that kind of return to normal. And so we had a reduced level of expenses going on over the last 18 months in addition to the revenue.
Thank you.
Councilman Rivero?
No questions, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Thanks, Mary Lou. Just one question. So when we get to 2022 funded, we'll have $40 million in capital improvements. And then where is our general reserves sitting right now? We have the requirement of 25% of our operating. Where are we sitting with that?
So if you can go back to that same slide. So we are sitting above the 25% level that we need to maintain. If we look, 2021 projection, we're at 25.6. So that $21 million balance is sitting within the general fund, and then we are at $18 million which is equivalent to 25.7 in our 2022 budget. This ratio is a ratio of our cash to our total expense. So that's why it does vary from year to year as to the absolute dollar amount, but the percentage has to be above that 25%.
Perfect. Thank you for that. All right, with that, we are going to open it up to members of the public who wish to make a comment on the budget. If there's anyone in the room wishing to, please come down to the podium and state your name. And Weldy, if we can ask anyone online if they're interested.
If you are online and would like to make public comment, can you please raise your hand? There are none.
Okay. With that, we are going to close the public hearing at 7:52 and bring it back to the council for further debate, comments, and I think I started that way first. I'll start this way. Councilman Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the work. I stated it 2 weeks ago. This is a huge process. We are consistently winning awards for your work, and your staff is absolutely amazing. I think as Councilwoman Barrington touched on, it takes a lot to run a town, and all of that goes through your few offices. So well done yet again. I appreciate your prepared 4 overall guidelines, meeting the general fund's required cash, reflecting operational recovery, balancing competing needs, and maintaining community programs, all reflected in this budget. And again, well done. I will state again that priority scoring for expense increases was a nice, I won't say surprise, but a step we took. We've used it in the past for capital expenses, and I am very, very happy to see it for expense increases. So again, well done. And then lastly, we touched on it also, the 4% performance play keeps our employees competitive, but it also allows us to retain our employees. I've said it, we've all said it, we've said it for many years. We have the best staff in the world, and we want to keep them. And I am very, very happy that there was thought to the officer step plan. It's made us competitive. We've been able to fill some positions, as the mayor stated during our presentation, and we have the best police force, and this allows us to maintain that police force. So thank you all very, very much.
Councilmember Pogue.
No, I don't have any further questions.
Okay. Councilmember Hendricks.
I'll just echo Councilmember Rivero's comments. Thank you for all your hard work and running a town. Everyone, yes, running a town is a big ordeal, but I'm very pleased with how our finances are run here. Thank you.
Great. Councilman Dyak.
Nothing further, thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Barrington. Councilmember Hefta. Oh, sorry. Ann, did you want to? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, show me your budget and you show me your priorities. And thank you for all of your hard work. And I think it just, everything, all your hard work is in line with the strategic goals in supporting an active community, promoting a safe and healthy community. And there's a lot more, but great job. Thank you.
Councilmember Hefta.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And it's great to know how we can improve our roads and improve the lives of our citizens in Parker, Colorado, with a balanced budget in improvements all over our town. Thank you.
Great. All right, Council, with that, I'm going to entertain a motion on ordinance number 1.553.
I move to approve ordinance number 1.553 on second reading.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Councilmember Dyak, seconded by Councilmember Barrington. We'll do a voice vote. Hefta?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Pogue?
Yes.
Rivero?
All right.
And that passes unanimously 6-0. Item number 6B, ordinance number 1.547.2 on second reading. A bill for an ordinance to adopt the 2021 revised budget for the town of Parker and to make appropriations for the same. We've swapped out our finance people and Jennifer Campbell's ready.
Yes.
Great.
Good evening. We are going to change gears. We've been talking all night about 2022, but I'm going to bring you back to 2021. So in the study session, we already went through the process of the budget amendments and our considerations and how we come to what needs to be done. So tonight we're really just going to focus on what is on the list. But First, just a reminder for the public why we're here tonight. It's the council that has the authority to make these changes to the budget throughout the year via budget ordinance, and this is going to be the second one of the year. All right, so here's a summary of all of the projects across all funds, or all the budget amendments, excuse me. If you look down at the bottom, we're actually seeing an increase of cash of just over $5.1 million. That's because a lot of these changes are actually just inter-fund transfers, so they'll zero out between the funds, and we are recognizing some additional revenue. Okay, here is our first fund, the general fund. This top number of $19.3 million should not be any surprise to you because that is the supplemental transfer that we're talking about to go over to the Capital Renewal and Reserve Replacement Fund. There's some other projects in here for things that have come up throughout the year, but the big number there is going to be that transfer to the cash reserves for the infrastructure. All right, here we have the Parks and Recreation Fund, the Law Enforcement Assistance Fund, and the Cultural Fund. In the Parks and the Law Enforcement Assistance Funds, these are just projects that we're getting started with developer contributions and grant funding. In the Cultural Fund, we had an unanticipated need to make some replacements at the PACE sign. So next here, you might be a little bit confused about this Capital Reserve Fund when we were just talking about making transfers into it, but we did have to make an accounting change between funds, so the name is changing from the Capital Reserve Fund to the Capital Renewal and Replacement Reserve Fund, so that's what you're going to see there. We're just transferring from the one named account to the other one. In the Public Improvements Fund here, again, we're just getting started on some projects with some developer contributions. Again, this is the transfer into the new fund at the top, the Capital Renewal and Replacement Reserve Fund. Thank you, Rhonda, for that name. And the stormwater is, again, just going to be a developer contribution that we're passing through to the Mile High Flood District for them to get started on a project. And that last item, that Facility Service Fund, that's what Mary Lou mentioned. We are bringing up the fund to a healthy fund balance through some budgetary transfers. And with that, do you have any questions on anything specific?
Great, thank you. And just for the record, the public hearing on this was opened at 7:56, Chris. And we'll start to my left. Councilman Dyack, questions?
No questions. Again, as was stated, this is kind of par for the course. Budgeting is a good process. It's very detailed, very lengthy, but there are some things that happen throughout the year that need to be addressed that we just didn't quite think of. So appreciate the time and the thought in completing this. Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Barrington, questions?
No questions.
Great. Councilmember Hefta, questions?
No questions.
Councilmember Hendricks?
No questions.
Councilmember Pogue?
No question.
Councilmember Rivera?
Just one real quick, as we create or move funds to the capital R&R fund, does the other fund go away? Do we maintain a line item? Goes
No,
away?
that's going to be closing.
Thank you very much.
All right, and with that, we are going to open this up for public comment. Any members of the public wishing to make a comment on this, come down to the podium. Weldy, do we have anybody on Zoom wishing to make a public comment?
I don't see any hands up, so last call for hands if you want to make a comment. None.
All right. With that, we're going to close the public hearing on this at 8 o'clock and bring it back to the council for any debate, comments, and we'll start with Councilman Dyack.
No,
Okay.
nothing.
Councilmember Barrington? No. Councilmember Hefta?
No.
Hendricks? Pogue? Rivera?
No, sir.
All right. With that, I will entertain a motion on ordinance number 1.547.2.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 1.547.2 on second reading, sir.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Councilmember Rivera, seconded by Councilmember Hendricks. This will be a voice vote. Rivera?
Aye.
Pogue?
Yes.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyack?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. All right, we'll swap out here. Next is the Pine Drive annexation. Council, you have 4 items to review. We've got resolution number 21-048, a resolution to set forth the town council finding of facts and conclusion as to the eligibility of the Pine Drive property for annexation to the town of Parker. You have ordinance number 2.279 on second reading, a bill for an ordinance approving and accomplishing the annexation of contiguous unincorporated territory known as the Pine Drive property in Douglas County. You have ordinance number 3.241.2 on second reading, a bill for an ordinance zoning certain property within the town of Parker, Colorado, known as the Pine Drive for PF Public Facilities District pursuant to the town of Parker Land Development Ordinance and amending the zoning ordinance and map to conform therewith. And lastly, you have amended and restated annexation agreement to approve. So the way we're going to do it, we're going to open up the public hearing. We're going to have staff, Stacy, welcome, do the presentation. I don't think we have a applicant.
We do.
We do have an applicant. So council, after that, we will have a chance to ask staff questions regarding this topic. Then we will have the applicant come down for, do you all have a brief presentation? Nope. Okay. So we'll have a chance to question the applicant, and then we'll have a chance for public comment on it. We'll close that out. We'll bring it back to the council for a debate and finally a vote. So I will open the public hearing at 8:02, and the floor is yours, ma'am.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is the Pine Drive property annexation and zoning. And just for clarification, this application was noticed to include the Douglas County School District filing number 1 minor development plat, but the application has been withdrawn by the applicant. So tonight we're just hearing the annexation and zoning. So the subject site is located at the southwest corner of Pine Drive and Hills Drive. The applicant, the Douglas County School District, is the owner of 2 separate parcels. The large 17.995 acre parcel, which is represented in orange on this map, was annexed into the town of Parker in 2006 and zoned planned development for residential purposes. The school district purchased this site in 2013 and processed a PD amendment to allow for school use on the property. The small 1.95 acre parcel, which is represented in green on this map, is currently located within unincorporated Douglas County. The school district is proposing to annex and zone the property to allow for the construction of an alternative high school and innovation campus on the property. The applicant is requesting to zone the 1.95 acre property and rezone the 17.995 acre property currently within the town to PF Public Facilities. The proposed public facility zone would allow for the construction of the school buildings on the property. The subject properties are located within the medium-density residential character area of the town. This area is intended to provide a mix of housing options within the town, as well as provide other community assets such as places of worship, schools, and parks. This request is consistent with the goals and strategies of the master plan, as the proposed development will allow and support public and private partnerships to develop additional education opportunities within the town, provide sustainable and reliable public services to town residents, and this project will continue the coordination between the town and the school district to facilitate adequate school sites and needed facilities within the town. With the proposed 1.995 acre property annexation and the required zoning to the north, all properties should have consistent zoning. As Parker and Douglas County School District's population continues to grow, the allowance for an additional school site will help meet the demand for school services within the area. The proposed rezoning to PF Public Facilities is consistent with the master plan and the proposed uses intended for the site. There are 9 criteria used to evaluate rezonings. These criteria ensure that a need exists, the proposal is consistent with the master plan, adequate circulation exists, and will not be detrimental to the town. After evaluating the information provided by the applicant for the zoning, staff has determined that the proposal meets the 9 approval criteria set forth in the Land Development Ordinance. Staff has reviewed the proposal and has determined that the project is consistent with the master plan. Utility providers have confirmed capacity and availability. All notice requirements have been satisfied. The Planning Commission heard the zoning request on November 4th, 2021, and recommended unanimous approval. Therefore, the staff and Planning Commission recommend that Town Council approve the Pine Drive property annexation and zoning. This concludes the staff's presentation. The applicant is present tonight to address you and answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you, ma'am. We'll go ahead and ask questions of staff. I'll start to my right. Councilmember Hendricks, any questions? Councilmember Pogue? Councilmember Rivera?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Dyke? Barrington? Hefta?
No.
Clean sweep. All right. Thank you, ma'am. So this is usually when we allow the applicants to come make a presentation. You don't have a presentation, but council, do we have any questions of the applicant? I'll start in the same order.
No, Mr.
Councilmember Dyak?
No.
Councilmember Hendricks, who I sometimes call Councilmember Dyak. Councilmember Pogue?
No.
Rivera, you're good? Councilmember Dyak? Barrington? Hefta?
No.
All right, clean sweep again. All right, now we'll open it up for public comment. Anyone in the room wishing to make a public comment on this item? Well, now that you're only a member of the public, so. Well, do we have anybody online?
I don't have any hands raised online.
Okay, then we will take it back. We will close the public hearing at 8:07. And council will have any final comments, starting with Councilmember Hefta?
Yes. As our population grows in Parker, with new developments going in Anthology and the trails at Crowfoot, we will have a significant population increase in the years ahead. And so I think there is a need for increased educational opportunities for the parents and students of Parker, Colorado. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Councilmember Barrington?
No comments, thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Dyak? Councilmember Hendricks? Councilmember Pogue?
No, I'm actually looking forward to a new type of facility on that site.
Excellent. Councilmember Rivero?
Yeah, I too agree with Councilwoman Hefta. I look forward to the Innovation Center and the Alternative Education School, along with obviously the continuing technical education school. I understand that the project had to be put on hold, and I just want to thank you very much for continuing with the annexation and rezone. I appreciate the partnership that we have, and I appreciate you guys working forward with that. That's all I have, sir.
Great. With that, so council, we're going to get through 4 of these items. So resolution number 21-048, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve. I move to approve resolution number 21-048.
Second.
Motion is made by Councilmember Hendricks, seconded by Councilmember Rivero. We'll vote in the same order for all 4 of these. So Rivero?
Aye.
Pogue?
Yes.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. I'll entertain a motion on ordinance number 2.279.
I move to approve ordinance number 2.279 on second reading, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second.
That motion is made by Councilman Rivero, seconded by Councilmember Barrington. Rivero?
Aye.
Aye.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
And Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Ordinance number 3.241.2 on second reading.
I move to approve ordinance number 3.241.2.
I'll second.
That motion is made by Councilmember Pogue, seconded by Councilmember Hendricks. Rivero?
Aye.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Last is the amended and restated annexation agreement.
I move to approve the annexation agreement, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second.
Was that Laura? Motion is made by Councilman Rivero, seconded by Councilmember Hefta. Rivero?
Aye.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Thank you all very much. Welcome to the town of Parker. We're glad you're here. All right. Item number D is ordinance number 3.193.6 on second reading. A bill for an ordinance amending the Parker Auto Plaza Development Guide pursuant to the Town of Parker Land Development Ordinance. Council, there has been a request from the applicant. Jim, do I need to open up the public hearing?
Please, if you could
Okay. We'll open up the public hearing at 8:10. Council, there has been a request by the applicant to move this out to a date certain of December 13th meeting while staff and the applicant review some items. So I'd entertain a motion on that.
So moved.
The motion is made by Councilman Rivero, seconded by Councilmember Hendricks. Rivero?
Aye.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
And Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. And we'll close that public hearing at 8:10 as well. All right, everybody take a breath. Randy Sale is going to have all the oxygen taken out of the room with his 12 items. So don't let it all out before Josh gets back. So, all right. But council, you have on the building code updates, we have 12 items. We have ordinance number 4.85.5. We have ordinance 4.89.7, ordinance 4.91.7, ordinance 4.92.6, ordinance 4.93.6, ordinance 494.5, ordinance 4.96.5, ordinance 4.97.5, ordinance 4.101.6, ordinance 4.105.3, ordinance 4.106.3, and ordinance 4.95.5. So Council, Randy will have one presentation. We'll go through the same approach we already did, and then we will have a vote on each of those 12 items. So it's all yours, sir.
All right. Well, can you hear me? Yep. All right, here we go. So little background. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for entertaining this tonight. I appreciate it. So a little background on the International Code Council itself. It is the largest international association of building safety professionals. It was founded in the mid-90s by request of the design and construction industry to develop a single set of comprehensive model codes to help establish a baseline for building safety globally, which creates a level playing field for all builders and manufacturers. The co-council members include building, fire, plumbing, mechanical, and electrical officials. A lot of the ICC members themselves are architects, engineers, designers, a lot of people in the building industry who have many votes on this. There's members in 38 countries with 377 worldwide chapters, Colorado being a forefront leader for the Colorado chapter of the ICC as well. The vision is to create a safe, affordable, sustainable buildings and communities while protecting the health, safety, and welfare, and to create a community where people can live, work, and learn, which is a lot of the values that we have ourselves here at the town. The Parker adoption history, it goes all the way back to 2004. This will be our 7th consecutive time for presenting new code changes for the new additions to the council. The staff participation during the last 12 months has been essential for us to come up with code amendments if we feel there are any needed. They are the eyes and the ears out there in the field that really help us build what we are seeing be built around here. Coordination with the Home Builders Association and South Metro Fire Rescue has been well received from both entities. The current codes we are on right now are the 2018 international codes along with the 2017 National Electrical Code. That's why we're here tonight, to adopt the latest editions of these building codes to keep everything substantial. The next few slides that we're going to be given are just kind of an overview of each code. I'm not going to read all those off up there, but with Council's approval tonight, the codes will be adopted by reference respective to their specific year and title. National Electrical Code. Again, currently we're on the 17 National Electrical Code. There are really no amendments that we have done in there. It adopts the 2020 National Electrical Code edition of the NFPA requirements consistent with the best practices around. The administration chapter is replaced with the Parker Admin Code. Well, the Parker Admin Code it unifies all the individual administrative codes in each book into one, so it can be uniformly applied through all the technical codes. Really, that's the biggest thing we do with all the codes. I only referenced it one time here, but all the admin codes have been removed from the book itself and just replaced with this code here. There has been no major changes besides years. The dates changed in that code itself. The residential code for 1 and 2 family dwellings, we do have an amendment in there to remove section R313 for the automatic fire sprinkler systems. This has been done for the past 3 code cycles with great support from the HBA as well. We do not let the life safety issues just diminish because we're taking away sprinklers. There are other provisions in the code that help still to protect these homes very well. General amendments to the code for regional design, snow loads, and energy. It's something, it's a table we always have to fill out specific to our region. So that was done there. And by adopting the National Electrical Code, the 2020 NEC, we will hopefully be removing these chapters 34 through 43 of the IRC because we just replace it with the National Electrical Code. The Parker Building Code itself, mainly used for commercial multifamily stuff. Again, very minor amendments, no additional amendments besides the regional updates for snow wind loading. The Fire Protection Code, the Fire Code, you know, we worked very close with South Metro to understand a lot of their ordinances, their amendments, to be able to be in line with them. So people who either build in Parker and in the South Metro District itself, in their jurisdictions, it's the same code. We really don't have anything different in our code than they have. So it's been a great working relationship with South Metro doing that. Mechanical code, there's really no amendments at all on the mechanical code side since the 18, along with the energy code, the fuel gas code. I wish I could highlight everything we changed, but there hasn't been anything in these past ones. So the property maintenance code, this principal purpose for adopting this code is to help address adequate maintenance of buildings and property, which is enforced by the Community Service Division of the Parker Police themselves. After discussion with them, they had no amendments to the code from the 18 to the 21 codes. The existing Parker existing code, this comes into play a lot when we have, you know, obviously remodel existing buildings, historical or moved buildings. This code is not highly used, but there are some architects out there who love this code and it works well for them. Swimming pool and spa code, no amendments since the 18, no changes. And along with the plumbing code, there's no changes on that. By approval of the new codes tonight, the Parker Building Division will be able to ensure safe and sound construction by setting the minimum building fire and life safety levels required by the codes. Many other jurisdictions are currently preparing to adopt the same codes, usually mid next year or late next year. By adopting it tonight, we will be one of the leaders in the Douglas County area. Not that, and it kind of helps a little bit with all the other jurisdictions, so it's kind of nice. With that, you know, staff recommends approval of ordinance item 7A 1 through 12 as related to all codes reference. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions council may have.
All right. Well, it doesn't sound like you're so sure you want to be done with it. You want to keep going for another 12?
I was told there weren't going to be any questions, so.
We'll start to my left. Councilmember Hefta.
No questions. Thank you for your presentation.
All right, thank you.
Great. Councilmember Barrington.
No questions, thank you.
Councilman Dyack.
No questions.
Councilmember Hendricks.
No questions.
Councilmember Pogue.
Of course.
I'll go for it. Just note the ordinance that you're looking at. So
Yeah, it'd be,
give Randy a fighting
item
chance.
6.
Okay.
And I was just wondering, what is the current wind speed? Is there a change on that now, or what are we
There's
building to?
there's no actual change on it. There was some reference changes to the section. It's all the same. Commercially, it's a little bit different. It goes from 110 to 120, depending on where you're at.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other one, just for personal knowledge, the ordinance number 4.106.3, swimming pool and spa code.
Yes.
I'm assuming that refers only to commercial entities? Or does it
No,
all-
there are actually some residential stuff in there for when someone wants to put in a hot tub in their backyard. Or swimming pools in their backyard. It is in the residential code. This one spells it out a lot more plain. But yes, you are correct, and it's more enforced with the commercial aspect of the codes for any building going on, hotels and private or, public pools.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Councilman Rivera.
No, I just was wondering where the orange tie was that I saw in your office.
Yeah, well, that was my clip-on. Sorry.
All right. With that, we are going to open up for public comment. Anyone wishing to make a comment on these 12 ordinances? Come on down. Well, anybody online looking to do that? All right, we'll bring it back to the council. Council, if there's no other comments or thoughts, you've got 12 votes to take. So I will entertain a motion on ordinance number 4.85.5.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 4.85.5 on second reading, sir.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is made by Councilman Rivera, seconded by Councilmember Hendricks. Rivera.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yes.
That passes 6-0. Ordinance number 4.89.7 on second reading.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 4.89.7 on second reading, sir.
I'll second.
Hefta. Motion is made by Councilman Rivera, seconded by Councilmember Hefta. Rivera.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yep.
And that passes 6-0. Ordinance number 4.91.7 on second reading.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 4.91.7 on second reading, sir.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Councilman Rivera, seconded by Councilmember Hendricks. Rivera.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Ordinance number 4.92.6 on second reading.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 4.92.6 on second reading, sir.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Councilman Rivera, seconded by Councilmember Hendricks. Rivera.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yep.
And that passes 6-0. Item number 5, ordinance number 4.93.6 on second reading.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 4.93.6 on second reading, sir.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Councilman Rivera, seconded by Councilmember Pogue. Rivera.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yes.
That passes 6-0. Ordinance number 4.94.5 on second reading.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 4.94.5 on second reading, sir.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Councilman Rivera, seconded by Councilmember Hendricks. Somebody from the left can, chime in there. Rivera.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yep.
Dyak. Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Halfway there.
Need some water?
I'm good so far.
Okay.
Ordinance number 4.96.5 on second reading.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 4.95.5 on second reading, sir.
I'll second.
Awesome. All right. Motion is made by Councilman Rivera, seconded by Councilmember Barrington. Rivera.
Aye.
Aye.
Pogue. Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yep.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Ordinance number 4.97.5 on second reading.
Mr. Mayor, I think you're one up. I think we're doing 9.6, sir.
We just did
There was
9.6.
no 9.5.
We did 4.96.5.
Yeah.
Now we're doing 4.97.5.
He called out 4.95.5. It should have been 4.96.5.
All right.
Under my list I have number 7, ordinance
Okay.
number 4.95.5. Sorry.
All right. So, Councilman Rivera, will you take a friendly amendment to
Yes.
change it to 496.5?
Yes.
Anyone object?
No.
Okay. Then we'll let the vote stand on 4.96.5. Item number 8, ordinance number 4.97.5.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 4.97.5, sir. On second reading, sir.
I'll second.
Barrington. Motion is made by Councilman Rivera, seconded by Councilmember Barrington. Rivera.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Item number 9, ordinance number 4.101.6 on second reading.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 4.101.6 on second reading, sir.
Second?
Motion is made by Councilman Rivera, seconded by Councilmember Pogue. Rivera.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yep.
Dyak.
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6.0. Item number 10, ordinance number 4.105.3.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 4.105.3, sir, on second reading.
I'll second.
Was it Ann or? Okay, all right. Motion is made by Councilman Rivera, seconded by Councilmember Barrington. Rivera.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yep.
Dyak.
Yep.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yes.
That passes 6-0. Item number 11, ordinance number 4.106.3 on second reading.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 4.106.3 on second reading, sir.
I'll second.
And that was Hefta. Motion is made by Councilman Rivera, seconded by Councilmember Hefta. Rivera.
Aye.
Pogue. Hendricks.
Yep.
Dyak.
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Last chance, last chance. Ordinance number 4.95.5 on second reading.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 4.95.5 on second reading, sir.
I'll second.
We'll give it to Hefta. Motion is made by Councilman Rivero, second by Councilmember Hefta. Rivero.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Sure, why not?
Dyak.
Yep.
Barrington.
Yes.
Hefta.
Yes.
And that passes 6.0. Well done, well done. All right, thank you, sir. Come back in 3 years. All right, we'll be ready for you. All right. Next up is ordinance number 1.552 on second reading, a bill for an ordinance to levy general property taxes for the year 2021 to help defray the cost of government for the town of Parker, Colorado for the 2022 budget year.
I'm back.
I'm glad you're back.
I promise it's the last time I'll come up tonight.
Tonight.
Anyway. Yes, tonight. What we have in front of you tonight is the last step for the 2022 budget. This does pertain to the levy of our general property taxes. The important thing to know with this item is that our levy is 2.602, and that cannot change without a vote of the citizens of the town of Parker. So last year was 2.602. We're going to stick with 2.602 for 2022. That means that the only difference in our property tax revenue for 2022 is due to the change in the valuation. We have had about an 11% revenue increase, and that is because our assessed valuation has increased from $936 million and change up to $1,037 million. I had to do a double take there. So we have had a pretty good increase in our assessed valuation, and that is due to the work of the Douglas County Assessor's Office. The revenue for 2022 is budgeted at $2,699,360. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Great. Council, we'll go ahead and start to my left. Councilman Dyak. Councilmember Barrington.
No questions.
Councilmember Hefta.
Yes, just for clarification purposes, the mill levy was 2.602, and any increase in someone's property taxes would be due to their property value going up.
Any increase in the property tax related to the town of Parker.
Oh, sorry.
So
yes,
just want to clarify
Yes.
that, because the majority of property taxes does not come to the town. If I own a $300,000 house here in the town, if that's the market value, I am paying $56 in property tax to the town.
thank you for that clarification. That's what I was looking for.
Perfect.
And Mary Lou, we want to know where that house is in Parker.
Yeah,
It's time to update.
I need to update my example.
Please double it.
No, just don't let it out where it's at, and we'll talk later.
Okay.
Councilmember Hendricks. Councilmember Pogue.
No, thank you.
Councilmember Rivero.
Just real quick, if you could, maybe what percentage of our revenue is property tax versus sales tax? I just want to get for the citizens the difference between, say, the town and the county.
Our property tax is $2.7 million. I think I'm going to roughly estimate our revenue in the general fund at $50 million.
Thank you.
So we're looking at 4%.
Thank you.
Great. All right, with that, we will open this up for public comment. Anybody in the room wishing to make a comment on this, the budget? Weldy, do we have anybody online? All right, we'll take it back. Council, any further comments on the budget? Okay, then I will entertain a motion on ordinance number 1.552 on the levy.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 1.552 on second reading.
Second.
Motion is made by Councilmember Pogue, seconded by Councilmember Hefta. We'll just keep our order. Rivero.
Aye.
Pogue.
Aye.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Dyak.
Yes.
Barrington.
Yes.
and HEFTA.
Yes.
And that passes 6.0.
Thank you,
That was
Council, for
fast.
all of these budget items tonight. Very much appreciated.
Thanks, Mary Lou. Appreciate you. All right, next up is ordinance number 1.554 on second reading. A bill for an ordinance stating the intent of the town of Parker to acquire certain property interests for the purpose of constructing and improving the north sidewalk on East Main Street, a town roadway, through the utilization of the town's power of eminent domain and directing the town staff and town attorney to notify all persons affected thereby of the above stated intent of the town and thereafter comply with all pertinent provisions of CRS section 38.1.101 and the accompanying sequence relating to good faith negotiations. Mr. Hudson, did you write that out all yourself? Or?
No, I had an attorney do it, so.
You and Randy conspiring for tonight to. Awesome. Welcome, sir. It's good to see you.
It's good to be back. So next slide, please. So kind of give you guys some background due to some continued investments we've made in the downtown area along Main Street. There currently exists a section of what I'll call narrow sidewalk on the north side of Main Street between Victorian Drive, the east intersection, and Pace Center Discovery Park area. Current sidewalk's about 4.5 feet wide, and to be consistent with other improvements that have made in the downtown area, we'd like to widen that to a 12-foot wide improved sidewalk, which is made up of a 4-foot tree lawn, or tree grate area, excuse me, with an 8-foot improved sidewalk area, colored concrete to match the other improvements in the downtown area. These improvements are actually funded by PAR P3. Funding was appropriated in late 2020, and town staff is looking to do these improvements in 2022 or 2023. Timing of the improvements really depends on this acquisition that I'm going to talk about tonight, and there's some much needed utility relocations that have to happen to make the widening happen. Next slide, please. So this is a vicinity map. It's an older aerial, but kind of showing the area from Victorian and Main Street East down to the Discovery Park area. Sidewalks to the west of this area were improved in 2008, and improvements to the east were actually done about 5 years ago with the library Discovery Park site. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of the sidewalk as it exists today. It's a inlaid brick paver type sidewalk, and it's 4.5 feet wide, including the 6-inch concrete strip on the back side of the sidewalk. Next slide. This is what we're looking to install, and this is a view looking east. So working left to right on the drawing, there's actually going to be a concrete wall with a fence on top of it, and this is needed to make up some grade that with the houses that are there today. And there's some places it's not going to be much retained. Some places it's going to be the full 2 feet, but it's going to be a consistent wall height, the full length of it. 8-foot sidewalk, and the tree grate will be 4 feet wide. We're also going to install the pedestrian lighting. It's consistent with everything else we've done downtown. These lights will be on roughly 90-foot centers for the length of what we're doing. So that's what we're looking to build out there. Next slide, please. So we've identified 2 properties that we need additional right-of-way. The western property is the PAR P3 property, which actually earlier tonight, council approved the board of PAR P3, excuse me, the board there to move forward with a plat that we'll talk a little bit more later. The eastern property is a common area tract owned by the Town and Country Village Homeowners Association. Both property owners have been contacted about the planned improvements, and the PAR P3 property is moving forward dedication of right-of-way through a subdivision plat that is planned to come to council before the end of the year on December 13th. There's also a temporary construction easement. We'll handle that via a separate document. It's temporary in nature. It doesn't need to come to town council because it ultimately goes away. Next slide, please. As part of the research into existing conditions, staff reviewed the Town and Country Village subdivision filing number 4. That's the stretch of Town and Country along the frontage here. that we're looking at. Site plan was approved in 1983, before the townhomes adjacent to Main Street were constructed. The plans actually show a 8-foot wide hiker-biker path is what it's called. And I'll show you this drawing, a detail a little bit further on. Outside of the right-of-way and on the common area property. I just talked about a 4.5-foot wide sidewalk there today. Well, there's not an 8-foot hiker-biker path that was constructed. And again, the existing sidewalks within right-of-way. It's very close to the back of right-of-way. So next slide, please. So this is a plat from 1983. I was, in 1983, I was listening to Quiet Riot.
Don't want to feel the noise.
Yeah. But it shows the 8-foot wide hiker-biker path. This is the approved site plan from 1983. It doesn't exist today. If we had this 8-foot hiker-biker path, we really wouldn't be talking about an acquisition that's needed. That's there today. You will notice the frontage on this property is about 570 feet. That's the frontage on Main Street, and that actually shows up in this site plan document. Next slide, please. So the needed Town Country Townhome Village Association property is the intent of this, subject of this intent to acquire ordinance. Permanent acquisition, this will be a fee, what we anticipate to be a fee or right-of-way acquisition. It's about 5,000 square feet, 5,100 square feet. Notice I just talked about was 570 feet of frontage. We've got a 9-foot average acquisition depth that we're getting along this frontage of this property. It varies depending on where you are. Temporary construction easement, about 8,600 feet, and it varies to take into account the landscaping restoration we're going to have to do along the front of the townhomes, and also some, there's a little arm that sticks out in the next graphic you're going to see. That's to make a connection back to their irrigation controller that we think we're going to have to make. Again, I talked about the frontage being 570 feet. This is the next slide is kind of showing the vicinity map of the acquisition. I'm going to do a blow up in the next slide. But this shows the par properties to the west and the Town and Country Townhome property. Next slide, please. This is a blow up showing what we're doing. So the blue is the proposed permanent acquisition area. The yellow is the temporary construction easement. And you can see that the yellow varies. It goes up to the existing sidewalk that's on the south side of the townhomes that are there or the parking lots. And we're anticipating we're going to have to restore most of this landscaping with the project. There's no as-built plans of the irrigation system for this development. My gut's telling me the worst is going to happen. We'll probably get into all the main lines and all the controller wires. And that's why we've done this. It's a worst-case temporary construction easement that we need. We hope it's less, but tonight we're here to tell you what we need to do the project. So next slide, please. The town has identified the needed right-of-way, the permanent acquisition, and temporary construction easement to complete the proposed sidewalk improvements on the north side of Main Street between Victorian Drive East and the Discovery Park, Pace Center Drive. The needed right-of-way for the Town and Country Townhomes Village property is consistent with what's being proposed in the PAR P3 plat that will be coming to you later this year on December 13th. Improvements, some people might consider these to be improvements to be a benefit to the adjacent property, but we're going to look at this as basically the town's acquiring property. We would like to move forward with doing an appraisal for this property, and it will be based on the market value of this common area, based on appraisal. To kind of summarize this, town staff and our consultant will engage in good faith negotiations for the needed right-of-way and temporary construction easement. If we're unable to come to an agreement, I'm always confident that we can come to an agreement. We strive for good faith negotiations, and I'm always hopeful that we can come to a good faith agreement. We'll touch back with town council before we ever move forward with any sort of eminent domain. This is, again, we're stating our intent to acquire this property. It doesn't mean that we're automatically going to go to eminent domain. We have to engage in good faith negotiations. And an ordinance is required to approve this intent to acquire. And with that, I am wrapped up and will answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you, sir. We'll start to my left, Councilmember Dyak. Any questions on this?
Yeah, Chris, can you name the lead singer of the Quiet Riot Band, please?
I can't, but Twisted Sister, yes. So
yeah. Kevin DeBro. How about lead guitar?
You know all this stuff, not me.
I'll take Randy Rhoads or Carlos Scavanos, so I'll just leave it.
Okay, Councilmember Barrington, come help us out here.
Back to reality.
You opened the door. I mean,
I did.
Come on. You throw out Quiet Riot in the presentation, you gotta follow it.
Yeah.
So just for clarification, we are moving forward with good faith negotiations. You've been talking a lot to Town and Country HOA.
So we had some meetings with Town and Country back in the first quarter of 2021 where we laid out 3 options. The board preferred the option we're going forward with. And we're basically moving forward with that outcome and that direction they gave us. So we will continue these good faith negotiations. There will be an offer made for the property. We are not taking anything without just compensation. We're talking about, again, an appraisal will be done. An appraisal will be given to the Town and Country townhomes that they can review. And ultimately, if they want, they can actually get their own appraisal if they don't think it's fair. That's a requirement under state law. This process takes time. While we hope to construct next year, this acquisition process can take months. I've even had it take over a year before. Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilmember Hefta.
Thank you for your presentation, Chris. Could you tell me a little bit more about the concrete wall with the fence?
So because of the grade differences, if you stand along Main Street, the homes sit up higher, some places up to 2 feet higher. So what we decided to do was move forward with a solid concrete wall with a fence on top of it. It will be a black metal fence, similar to some other fences that are in the downtown area. Example, the one along O'Brien Park. Very similar there. Again, consistent theme down there. Concrete wall will be have a cast-in-place kind of form liner, so it will look like brick is what we're planning to do. And ultimately, I've had some people compare this to a brownstone look. Now, I've never been to the brownstone district in New York. I've seen pictures of it. These homes will sit up higher, and there'll actually be staircases. Today, there's no connection to the sidewalk on Main Street. It's all turf. We're actually talking about building sidewalks and stairs to connect the Main Street sidewalk to the Town and Country townhomes with this project.
How long will that concrete wall be? Will it be the length?
It will be the full length of the 570 feet less the stair opening. So it'll be probably 550 feet total.
That will afford also the Town and Country townhomes a little bit more privacy than what they're currently getting, and they are in favor of that?
So when we met with the board, yes, they were, because it provides a good separation from the sidewalk users and the homeowners that are right there.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hendricks. No questions. Councilmember Polk.
Yes, Chris, when the town expanded and widened Main Street, how much of the property did it use in front of these townhomes for that project?
So I was told that the Main Street was improved in the mid-1980s. So let's just say 1984, 1985. The back of the sidewalk is about a foot from the edge of right-of-way. So there was no additional right-of-way that was required with the improvements that were done in the mid-80s.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Rivero.
Thank you. Are you talking about general entrances as far as the staircases, or a staircase per home?
There's just some general entrances. I think there's 3 of them.
Okay.
Where we tie back into some sidewalks that are coming down, but not every home's going to have a sidewalk. If you've been out there, the homes actually have a sidewalk in front of the homes that goes to each individual, we'll call it porch or landing, and then there'll be some general connections coming down.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir.
All right. With that, Laura, did you have any other questions? Okay, so we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Anyone in the room? I don't see anybody from townhomes. Weldy, do we have anyone? Okay, so we'll bring it back to the council for comments. Further, Laura?
Yeah, can I just say, I think this is a welcome improvement for downtown Parker. Years back when we had the Christmas parade, I remember everyone jammed up on that tiny little 4'5" sidewalk. And it's also a safety issue for people walking from, say, the coffee shop at FICA to the library. People want to be able to walk downtown Parker, and they want to be able to walk that strip with their children, say from the Pace to O'Brien Park, and visit the businesses along the way. So I applaud you and your department, Chris, and also the townhomes for taking this step forward to make this improvement for our residents.
Okay. Councilmember Barrington?
Thanks, Chris. No comments.
Okay. Councilmember Dyak?
No, sir.
Councilmember Hendricks?
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Hefta. Any opportunity to improve walkability on Main Street is welcome. Thank you.
Councilmember Pogue?
I've got mixed emotions. I understand where we're going and why we're going and the need for it, but I can tell you as a former owner of one of those units that's directly impacted, I would not appreciate it because of it's difficult to work around with the parking areas, and if you want to move in and out, it's another hassle if you're only putting in so many access points. So, like I said, I've got mixed emotions. I don't have a question.
Councilman Rivera.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate what we've done here. I appreciate the work that your department's done. And I appreciate the condominium board. And you touched on it a little bit, but this was one of 3 options presented. And this was initialized by the condominium board. And this is what we would sometimes call a friendly condemnation, just a step allowing us to use tools in our toolbox to get a price that is amenable to everybody. So I appreciate the work done here, and I look forward to this.
Excellent. With that, I will entertain a motion on ordinance number 1.554.
I move to approve ordinance 1.554 on second reading.
Second.
Motion is made by Councilman Dyak, seconded by Councilman Rivera. Rivera?
Aye.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6.0. Ordinance number 1.551 on second reading, a bill for an ordinance vacating a public sidewalk easement agreement conveyed to the town of Parker by Parker Water and Sanitation District. The continuing sidewalk saga here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the property just to the west of what we were just talking about for the intent to acquire. Next slide, please. So in 2007, Engineering Public Works worked with Parker Water, and we got a sidewalk easement. And that easement was accepted by Town Council, recorded. It was approximately 10 feet deep. It was for some improvements we did in 2008, right at the corner of Victorian. But also, we were contemplating some future improvements, is what we're doing. But we didn't quite know what we were doing. So this easement exists today. And the property is no longer owned by Parker Water. It's owned by PAR P3. Next slide. This is a vicinity map showing the area there, the frontage along Main Street, and this easement that's approximately 10 feet deep. Next slide, please. Similar to just what we just talked about. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We want to improve this sidewalk. And we're intending to do this work in 2022 or 2023. This easement does not exactly line up with what we're needing to acquire for the improvements that we're doing. And so we'd like to vacate it as a first step and ultimately plat the property to get the property for the town. So this is a first step here. So we're doing this as a cleanup, to clean up an old easement that will no longer be needed once a plat is in place. Next slide, please. So the PAR P3 staff basically want to handle the needed right-of-way dedication via the subdivision plat amendment. The plat is currently out for referral comments, and it's tentatively planned to come back to Town Council before the end of the year on December 13th. And again, the proposed right-of-way the sidewalk easement is no longer required. There's some overlap that don't exactly line up, and that's why we're vacating that easement today to clean up this ambiguity between the two. Next slide, please. Again, the vacation is the first step. The subdivision plat will be moved forward in summary, and the ordinance is required to approve this vacation of this permanent sidewalk easement. With that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Excellent. We'll start to my right, Councilmember Hendricks. Councilmember Pogue? No. Councilman Rivero?
Nope.
Dyak?
None.
Barrington? Laura?
No.
Great. We'll open it up for any public comment on this item. Weldy, anything? All right, we'll bring it back here and go comments. We'll just go in reverse order. Cheryl, anything? Todd? John? And all right, then I'll entertain a motion on ordinance number 1.551.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 1.551 on second reading, sir.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Councilman Rivero, seconded by Councilmember Barrington. Rivero?
Aye.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks? Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Thanks, Chris. All right, last ordinance of the night, Mr. Grabchuk's week. Walking down here is ordinance number 9.342 on second reading. A bill for an ordinance to approve the intergovernmental agreement by and between the Douglas County School District and the Town of Parker regarding the MS4 participation agreement.
Awesome. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. This ordinance is to approve an IGA between the town and the Douglas County School District regarding participation between our two MS4 programs. So just real quick, a little background on MS4 permits. I know this kind of material is a little dry, so I'll try and get through it as painlessly as possible. MS4 permits, or municipal separate storm sewer permits, are issued by the state to governmental agencies such as cities, towns, counties, school districts, health authorities, transportation districts, the like. So the town of Parker holds what is known as a standard permit for agencies between 50 and 100,000 population served. And Douglas County is a much smaller organization and holds a non-standard permit with the state. The non-standard permit restrictions are generally less they're less difficult to really perform than the standard permit. So the state recently updated the non-standard permits to require inspection, documentation, and administration requirements similar to that of our standard permits for both construction and post-construction programs as defined by the state. Due to these more stringent requirements, a lot of these smaller agencies, a lot of school districts are, initiating these IGAs with different larger agencies to kind of help cover some of these items. Specifically because they're more set up to do so. Real quick, I was just going to go over the two programs that this IGA would provide coverage for, the first being the construction program. So with this IGA, the Douglas County School District has agreed that all new construction is going to be performed in accordance with our town construction program, including development review and grading permits. Now, this is something they already did, 99.9% of the time. This is just codifying it essentially in an agreement. The town will inspect, document, and report on construction activities in accordance with the standard permit. And then this is no different than any other development within the town. For our post-construction permit, the Douglas County School District will provide permanent drainage easements for all existing school sites. And just to clarify, that's for all existing school sites, and they're going to provide those easements within 12 months. So that 12 months isn't for school sites 12 months past. And then all new schools during development review will be granted easements as well. These new facilities must comply with the town stormwater criteria as reviewed through the development review process. We will then perform, or rather the town will then perform inspections of new and existing facilities in accordance with our standard permit as we do for all of our other facilities located in the town. The town will document and report on these inspections and provide that documentation to the Douglas County School District. So just real quick, I wanted to hit the highlights essentially. So I think the big items are that the town will be granted legal access where we formerly did not have legal access to inspect these facilities other than from the right-of-way essentially. So we'll be able to make sure that these facilities are functioning correctly and not in need of any sort of maintenance or repair. As with all of our other facilities accepted into the town's stormwater utility, the ownership, maintenance, and repair responsibilities all remain with Douglas County School District. We're essentially just reporting to them how they're functioning and if any maintenance needs to happen. The review of new facilities are paid for via our standard permit and review fees for development review. So this is no different than a regular development application. And then additionally, the Douglas County School District does pay annual stormwater utilities fees to the town based on site sizes. And just lastly, the Douglas County School District and a lot of other school districts within the state are, entering into these agreements. It's really good for promoting collaborative governance and kind of building a good relationship between our department here internally and their department, which does handle these facilities operations. And with that, I recommend approval of this ordinance. Any questions?
Great. Start to my left, Councilmember Councilmember Hefta.
Yes, Michael, did the Douglas County school system propose that the town is granted legal access to the existing stormwater facilities, or was that something that the town brought up? How did that come about?
So essentially it's primarily a necessity to perform the inspections. So they kind of knew that that would be required just for our staff to be able to legally access the sites. And we kind of just, it came up very early on as kind of an expectation on both sides. It just makes sense in terms of the physicality of it.
And that's new, correct?
Both new and existing. So currently we don't have drainage easements on the existing school properties. So they're going to be working with our department on securing those easements for the town to be able to inspect those sites.
Okay. And so going forward, you would anticipate this to be updated as well?
Yes, so we'll update the map periodically as new sites come online. All those new sites will go through development review, and at that time we'll get easements for the new sites.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Barrington.
No questions, thank you.
Great. Councilman Dyak.
Nothing, thank you.
Councilman Hendricks. Councilmember Pogue. Councilmember Rivera. All right. With that, we'll open it up for any public comment on this ordinance. Well, do you see anything? All right. We'll bring it back to the council. If there's anyone have a further comment they'd like to make?
No, yeah, sorry, of course, stormwater. No, I appreciate the cooperation here. I understand the emphasis behind this. We are good at what we do as far as a standard MS4. Non-standards aren't. And the best way to say this is all of their MS4 permits land pretty much within our larger MS4 permits. So for us to be able to get a jump on things and not be surprised by whatnots, I see this as a wonderful step in cooperation. And I don't quote me on this, but once in a while I do agree with the state.
Councilmember Pogue, any comments?
No, thank you.
Hendricks, Dyak, Barrington, Hefta, any comments?
Just thank you, Public Works, for your presentations tonight.
All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion on ordinance number 9.342.
I move to approve ordinance number 9.342 on second reading, Mr. Mayor. I'll second.
Motion is made by Councilman Rivero, seconded by Councilmember Hendricks. Rivero?
Aye.
Pogue?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yep.
And that passes 6.0. Before we move on to the resolution section of our agenda, I've got a statement to read. The final two items on the agenda are for public hearings for Town Council's consideration of matters related to items to the Anthology West Metropolitan District and the Cherry Creek Metropolitan Districts, which are both residential metropolitan districts. On June 15th, 2020, the Town Council found that conflict of interest existed for Councilmember Pogue that precludes her from participating in any public hearings that involves a residential metropolitan district. At this time, we'll pause the meeting so that Councilmember Pogue may leave the council chambers before we open the public hearings on this.
And at this point, I'd like to make a statement.
The floor is yours.
Okay. The reason I have not changed my mind on metro districts and the 77 mil assessment against residential properties is because that bond goes for 40 years. And to me, that is allowing an excessive abuse of funding that the homeowner will in the future have to pay. It will almost double their property tax bill for over 40 years. And I think it's inherently wrong for this town to support development that is doing that to the future property owners. And I refuse to vote yes on these issues, and therefore I've been considered in conflict of interest.
Great.
So with that, I'll leave.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a good evening. And we'll take a short pause.
Yeah, I'm going out the back door.
Talk to you later. All right, Council. First up is resolution number 21-054, a resolution approving the form of revenue pledge agreement between Anthology West Metropolitan District Number 4 and Anthology West Metropolitan District Number 2. Kristen's here for us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This resolution approves the form of a revenue pledge agreement between Anthology West Metropolitan Districts Numbers 2 and 4. Those districts are located west of Motzenbacher between Stroh and Hess. The service plan for those districts requires the town to approve the form of any intergovernmental agreement that's entered into between those districts. So the districts tonight are here seeking approval of the form of a revenue pledge agreement that they're proposing to enter into between the two districts. This revenue pledge agreement has been reviewed by our outside counsel, and they found that nothing was prohibited by the service plan or IGA with respect to that revenue pledge agreement. The following debt is currently outstanding with those districts. With District Number 2, there's a general obligation limited tax bond series of 2014 in the amount of $1.85 million. For District 4, there's an outstanding general obligation limited tax bond series of 2018 for $6.44 million. District Number 4 is proposing to issue a limited tax convertible to unlimited tax general obligation refunding loan in the amount of $8.8 million to refinance both that 2014 and 2018 bonds. They're also proposing to issue a subordinate limited tax general obligation bond in 2022 in the amount of $1.12 million. District Numbers 2 and 4 are pledging their property taxes to repayment of those bonds. District Number 4 will be the issuer, as I mentioned before, and District Number 2, pursuant to the revenue pledge agreement, will pledge their mill levies consistent with the service plan. I will say that attorneys for the districts are here this evening if there's any questions.
Excellent. Thanks, Kristen. Do they have a presentation or just for questions?
No, they're just here for questions.
All right. So, Council, we will have questions for Kristen, or if you have, based on that, and we did review this in executive session too, if you have questions for the attorneys for the applicant as well. So we'll start. Councilman Rivera, any questions?
I have no questions, Mr. Mayor.
Hendricks, Dyak, Barrington, Councilmember Hefta?
No.
Great. All right. We will go to any public comment on this. Weldy, anybody online? Okay, seeing none. Council, if there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion on 21-054.
I move to approve resolution number 21-054.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Councilman Dyak, seconded by Councilmember Barrington. Rivera?
Aye.
Hendricks?
Yes.
Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
Pogue is absent. This passes 5-0. And the last resolution of the night is resolution number 21-055, a resolution providing consent to the inclusion of property within Cherry Creek South Metropolitan District Number 4 and Cherry Creek South Metropolitan District Number 6.
Thank you. Cherry Creek South Metropolitan Districts Numbers 4 and 6 are seeking the written consent of Town Council to include an additional 10.763 acre parcel into the boundaries of the districts. Both districts operate under service plans approved by the Town Council in 2020. Under Section 5A7 of the service plans, written consent of the town is required to include property within the districts. Due to an oversight, there was a 10.763 acre parcel that was excluded from these, that was not included within the districts. And so they are here tonight to seek your approval to be able to include that parcel within both of those districts. The residents and there's approximately 5 lots that are contained within that parcel. The residents and taxpayers will benefit from the services of those districts, and so it makes sense to include them within the boundaries. And again, tonight, attorneys for the districts are here to answer any questions you may have.
All right. So, Council, any questions for the attorneys, either ours, theirs, anyone else's? Councilmember Hefta, any questions?
Yes. Why, just curious, why has it taken this long to bring this before us, considering that the parcel is surrounded? Go ahead.
Come on down and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Megan Murphy, 21534 East Commons Avenue, Suite 2000, Centennial, from the firm White Bear, Ankley, Tanaka, and Waldron. The property was recently platted. Previously, they told us this will be a school that won't pay taxes. Now it has 5 lots. Whoops.
What year was that?
I believe you folks approved the platting recently, late last year, early this year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Barrington, anything?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Todd? John?
There will be no different burdens or obligations on these 5 parcels versus anything else in their neighborhood, correct?
Correct. If you don't approve this, they'll have to do something else with the platting because we can't have these folks living in the community but not paying taxes.
But there's nothing in here that would make them pay more than anybody else. They come in at the same level everybody else came in at.
That's correct, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right, we'll open it for public comment in the room or online. All right. Council, any further closing comments on the, your last word says it all, whoops. On the whoops. If not, I'll entertain a motion on resolution number 21-055.
I move to approve resolution number 21-055.
I'll second.
They waited till the end, but they got in there, so that's good. So, motion is made by Councilmember Barrington, seconded by Councilmember Hefta. Rivero?
Aye.
Hendricks? Yes. Dyak?
Yes.
Barrington?
Yes.
Hefta?
Yes.
And that passes 5-0.
I just wanted to say thank you for sticking around. I'm sorry it's such a great long meeting, but
Well, we just want to say thank you to your staff. They always help us make it to the podium in time, so thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sticking it out to the end. With no other business for the Parker Town Council, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned at 9:09.